I'm sure you've had your own controversial theme park opinions, whether that be that Thorpe Park is better than Alton Towers, or that Flying Fish is the best coaster in the UK. And it's always fun to hear other people's controversial opinions. So today, for my 1000 subscribers special, I'm going to be reacting to your controversial theme park opinions, using this style to gauge how much of a hot take I think they are. Let's get started. Raj's Bouncy Bottom Burp offers more airtime than Hyperia. We're off to a good start. I think it depends on how long the cycle is. If it's bouncing up and down for like 2 minutes, I could agree, but even then, Hyperia has stronger airtime, so I'm going to have to disagree. Why did I answer so seriously? Soar is the best ride at Thorpe Park. I normally hate on Soar, but my last ride was actually pretty smooth as I was sitting in the back middle seat. If Hyperia didn't exist and Soar was always glass smooth, then it could be a contender, but with how rough Soar is most of the time, and Hyperia now being at the park, I have to disagree. Though I respect your opinion. Spinball Whizzer is better than Nemesis Reborn and the Smiler. Ooh, now this is controversial. There's no denying that Spinball Whizzer is fun when you get an unbalanced car and just spin like crazy, though would I take it over Nemesis Reborn? Definitely not. And most of the time I would probably take the Smiler over Spinball Whizzer. However, if the Smiler's having a rough day, then I would actually give Spinball the upper hand, as it's just such a fun coaster. Creeley Theme Park is better than Thorpe Park, no debate. I think your Hyperia profile picture has exposed you. You can't catch me off guard that easily. Actually, to be fair, you kind of did when I first replied back. The big one is so janky. My lap hurt while riding it. It does look like a very janky coaster, especially with that first drop, which looks demented. It seems to have a kink midway down, but I've heard a similar opinion from quite a few people, so I don't think this is too controversial of a take. And be sure to subscribe for more reaction videos like this, but let's move on to the next controversial opinion. The Smiler is mid. Now me 2 years ago would agree. I used to find it a fairly repetitive and slightly rough coaster. However, it's grown on me recently. It has a couple of surprising moments of airtime, and I love the unique theme. Soar is the best ride in the UK. It is for sure one of the best themed coasters in the UK, and although it has a great layout, I think the roughness stops it from being one of my favourite UK coasters. Towers has lost its magic over the years, and Thorpe nearly has taken over as the best. I agree that Alton Towers is currently going through a rough time, especially when looking at the ride availability, and with the addition of Hyperia at Thorpe, it does bring the parks much closer together. I did a head-on-head video recently, which I'll put up in the top corner. The Smiler is way better than Nemesis Reborn. Although I don't agree with this opinion, I can see where you're coming from. The Smiler has a longer layout, and it has a few things that Nemesis lacks, such as airtime and a pre-lift section. In terms of how controversial this opinion is though, I would put it in the middle. Nemesis Inferno is better than Nemesis Reborn. I don't think this argument will ever stop. It's become less prominent now that Nemesis Reborn has opened, but it's still lurking in the shadows. I have more of a soft spot for Inferno, as is at my home park, and there's no denying that the pre-lift is awesome when the mist is working. However, Nemesis Reborn is the better coaster, as its theming and layout are more unique. And it also has a greater variety of forces. 1 second you're going through the bone-crushing helix, and the next you're floating through the air as you're flying through the zero-G roll. Furious Baco is terrible, it's so rough and uncomfortable. I can only go off what other people have said for this one, but I've heard that it's a very rough coaster, especially on the wing seats. I think that what makes people enjoy the coaster is that amazing hydraulic launch and the intensity going through all of those low to the ground turns, though I'm sure they're not delivering to their full potential as the coaster is so rough. Big Dipper is really underrated and it's one of the best woodies in the country. The Big Dipper looks like a brilliant classic coaster, which although rough in sections, looks the part since its recent repaint, and apparently has some nice drops with good airtime. Wicker Man isn't intense, it's just boring. I can see why you may think this for morning rides towards the front of the train, however when the coaster is running quickly on a nice day, I personally find it to be quite intense for a family thrill coaster, with all of the varying levels of laterals and quick pops of airtime. The Swarm is arse and rough rides aren't rough, e.g. Colossus, Soar, Infusion and the Grand National. This is a controversial one. If we went back a few years, I would agree with your opinion on the Swarm being boring. Although it's forceful in sections, I found it way too graceful and prefer coasters such as Colossus.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
That being said, the Swarm has been growing on me recently. And in terms of the rough coasters not being rough, I haven't been on Grand National, so I can't talk about that one. But Soar, I do find a pretty rough coaster, especially when I'm sitting on a wheel seat. But Colossus definitely doesn't deserve the hate it gets, as if you stick your head out of the restraint, it's not too rough of a coaster in my opinion. The Smiler is the best ride at Alton Towers. The second Cobra roll and 2 inversions at the end are rough, but still the best at Alton Towers. I would personally take Wicker Man and Nemesis Reborn over the Smiler, but I can see why you like the coaster. It's got some surprising moments of airtime, an incredibly unique layout, and the theme is just crazy. KFC is the best meal you can get there, no doubt. It is definitely the best themed restaurant at Thorpe Park, however in terms of the food, I think pizza and pasta might have the edge over KFC. Sorry. The blue side of Stampeder was horrible. Got 2 rides in it, but 1 was enough. It was a non-stop jackhammer along the track. That doesn't sound like a fun experience at all. I've heard quite lots of bad things about Stampeder with its roughness, so I don't think this is too controversial of an opinion. 13 is underrated. Facts. You get some nice moments of airtime in the first half of the layout, excluding that trimmed first drop. And the spoiler alert, drop track is one of the best in its class. And let's not forget that launch back into the station. Oh, it's better than stealth. Tutatis is better than Voltron. I haven't ridden either of these coasters. I know it's not good enough. I need to get out to some other theme parks. But I can see if you're a fan of Intamin multi-launches, then Tutatis could be better than Voltron. From watching videos, I am a bit more attracted to Voltron. No, I don't mean that kind of attracted. But I can't make my mind up until I've ridden both coasters. Galactica needs to go. I actually really enjoy the ride experience of Galactica, especially when I'm on the front or back row. However, the theming and presentation is lacking, and the operations can be pretty dire, so I get where you're coming from. Well, I prefer Galactica, Rita, and Nemesis over Wicker Man, however, it's better than Oblivion. Rita over Wicker Man, now that is controversial. You must be really into hydraulic launches. I can't agree with your Rita over Wicker Man opinion, however I did have a fairly underwhelming ride on Oblivion recently, in the sense that it really hit me how short the coaster is, apart from that mile-long brake run. So it's fair enough that you would take most of the coasters over Oblivion. Oblivion and OG Nemesis are both better than Nemesis Reborn. I wouldn't say that Oblivion is better than Nemesis or Nemesis Reborn, however, if you find Nemesis Reborn's rattle to be annoying, which it can be, I can imagine why you would take OG Nemesis over Reborn. Congrats. Oh, thank you so much. Raj's Bouncy Bottom Burp is better than High Striker at Thorpe. Wow, I didn't think we'd be comparing these rides in a controversial opinions video, but I would agree that Raj's Bouncy Bottom Burp is miles ahead of High Striker due to its amazing sound effects. Jewel was better than Curse at Alton Manor. If you're into classic shooting dark rides, then I can imagine why you prefer Jewel, but in my opinion Curse is much better as the theming is more immersive, and I love all of the new effects. And on top of all of that, I find that without the guns you can concentrate more on the ride experience. Rage is better than Saw. If we were just talking about the outside section on Saw, I would take Rage over it, but the main thing holding me back from taking Rage over the whole of Saw's layout is its lack of theming. I do love the indoor section of Saw, and I think that that alone beats Rage's layout. Galactica is underrated, and I personally enjoyed it more than the Smiler. Might just be because I sat in a wheel seat. A rough ride on the Smiler can be detrimental to the experience, and if I got off a back or front row ride on Galactica on the same day, I would probably take Galactica over the Smiler, as it's such an underrated smooth experience. However, when the Smiler is running smoothly, it is the superior coaster in my opinion. Palton's Park is the best. I'm sorry, but I don't think I've been to Palton's Park. I have been to Palton's Park though, and I do think it's the best run family theme park in the UK. Nothing in the UK is top tier, not even Hyperia. Hyperia, I think, is an S tier coaster, however the country does need more headlining coasters to compete with some other countries in Europe. Thanks to everyone who sent in their opinions, and also a big thank you for 1,000 subscribers. Genuinely, all of your support has been truly incredible, and that alone motivates me to do more videos, so thank you again. I'll see you in the next one.